Last class we are all discussing about the plant tissue. How many types of plant tissues are? How many types of plant tissues? There are 4 types of plant tissues. There are 4 types of plant tissues. Number 1 is meristematic tissue. The meristematic tissue are of 3 types. That is the apical meristematic tissue and lateral meristematic tissue and intercalary meristematic tissue. The meristematic tissue, the meristematic tissue are overall growth and repair. What is the function of meristematic tissue? That is the overall growth of plant. Overall growth of plant. And number 2 is the dermal tissue. The dermal tissue is outer covering layer of the plant. The dermal tissue is outer covering layer of the plant. Next, the ground tissue. What is the ground tissue? It is the helping the packing of materials. Helping the packing of materials. And number 4 is vascular tissue. What is the function of vascular tissue? It helps the transport of materials. It helps the transport of materials. We know about the meristematic tissue and dermal tissue and ground tissue. Last one is the vascular tissue. The dermal tissue is consist of a single tissue. The dermal tissue is a single layer tissue. The tissue is divided into 3 types. Number 1 is epidermis. Number 2 is mesodermis. And number 3 is endodermis. Epidermis, mesodermis and endodermis. Epidermis is the outermost layer. Epidermis is the outermost layer of the plant. And mesodermis is the middle of the layer. It is the middle layer. And endodermis is the innermost layer. It is innermost layer. It is the slide కనిపిస్తా ఉందా అందరికి?
మేడం
కనబడుతున్నది మేడం.
Next, the walls of the cells of dermal tissue are comparatively thicker than the meristematic tissue. To compare to the meristematic tissue, the dermal tissue is very thick. And the desert plants. What are the examples of desert plants? What are the examples of desert plants?
Cactus.
Opuntia, aloe vera. These are the examples of desert plants. The desert plants may have the thick and waxy. It is very thick and waxy. Next, we have seen some small pores in the epidermis of the leaf. That is called as stomata. We have seen some small teeny pores. That is the epidermis of the leaf. What is the epidermis of the leaf? The epidermis is the outermost layer of the plant. It is the outermost layer. That is called as stomata. That is called as stomata. Next, the stomata is consisted of guard cells and root hairs. Next, ground tissue, the cells of single, it is the consist of single layer. The cells of form from the ground tissue. It is useful for storing and provide the physical support of the plant body. It is provided to physical support and to store the food materials. Store the food materials. Next, the ground tissue is mainly 3 types. Number 1 is parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Next, the cells of the parenchyma is very soft and thin walled, and it is the cells is very loosely packed. The cells is very loosely packed. Next, the parenchyma contains chloroplast. What is the function of chloroplast? The chloroplast contains some green color pigment. It is called as chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is useful for the process of photosynthesis. The process of photosynthesis. The parenchyma contains chloroplast. It is called as chlorenchyma. It is called as chlorenchyma. Next, the parenchyma contains some large spaces, some large air cavities. It is called as parenchyma. It is called as parenchyma. The parenchyma contains chloroplast. That is called as chlorenchyma. The parenchyma contains some air cavities and some air spaces. It is called as parenchyma. It is called as parenchyma. The parenchyma is stores water, food, and some waste products. That's why it is also called as storage tissue. It is also called as storage tissue. Next one. Next, the collenchyma tissues have thick wall and the cells have very longer to compare to the parenchyma. To compare to the parenchyma, the cells of the collenchyma is the walls of the collenchyma is very thick and it is very longer cells when compared to the parenchyma. When compared to the parenchyma. Next, in the sclerenchyma, the cells are thick walled and it is very tightly packed. The cells arrangement is, it is very tightly packed. They do not have some spaces. They do not have some spaces. But when they compare to the dermal tissue, the ground tissue is various types and some of the ground tissue helps in the photosynthesis. The parenchyma is contained chloroplast that is called as collenchyma. It is useful for photosynthesis process. And to compare to the dermal tissue, the ground tissue is various types and some of the ground tissues are helpful for photosynthesis. Helpful for photosynthesis. Next. Who is he? He was the Nehemiah Grew. Evaru? Nehemiah Grew. He was a physician. He was worked in the secretary of the Royal Society in London. He worked as a secretary of Royal Society. Next, he began some work on the study of the internal structure of the plants in the year of 1664. The study of internal structure of the plant body. He was study the internal structure of the plant body. Internal structure of the plant body. Next, the Grew's fundamental inferences was every plant organ. Every plant organ consists of two types of organical parts. They contain every plant organ. In every plant organ contain two types of organical parts. That's number one is the pithy part and number two is the ligneous part. He worked as an internal structure of the plants and he concluded that every plant organ consists of two types of organical plant parts. That is, number one is the pithy part and number two is the ligneous part. Next, the Grew have the term parenchyma. The parenchyma for the pithy part. The parenchyma is the pithy part, and he initiated the study of some tissues. He initiated the study of tissues that is called as histology. That is called as histology. The study of tissues. The study of tissues is called as histology. He initiated the study of tissues in a plant bodies and he published some book that is called as Anatomy of Plants. He published his work as the book that is the Anatomy of Plants in the year of 1682. He studied the internal structure of the plant, that is in the year of 1664. He published the Anatomy of Plant, that is in the year of 1682. He was the Nehemiah Grew. He studied the internal structure of the plant body and he concluded the study of tissues. The study of tissues is called as histology. He published the book name was Anatomy of Plants. Anatomy of Plants. Next. Last one is the vascular tissue. The vascular tissue, we know that roots can absorb the water from the soil and send to the other parts of the plant body. We are all know that. Yes or no? Yes. The roots absorb water from the soil and to send to the other parts of the plant body. Next, and the leaves and the other green parts prepared food materials. The leaves and other green parts to prepare the food material by the using of sunlight. Okay, to prepare the food materials and supply it all to the parts of the plant. It's supplied to the food and all parts of the plant. That is the function of vascular tissue. Next, we are all know about the xylem tissue and phloem tissue in the earlier classes. We have studied the xylem and phloem tissue in 8th class. What is the function of xylem tissue and what is the function of phloem tissue? Anyone? Can you say the answer? So, next, the tissues that appeared green are xylem tissues. The tissues that appeared, it is the green color, that is called as xylem tissue. And the cells adjacent to the or phloem tissues. The cells, this is the xylem tissue that is having green color. It is called as xylem tissue. And the adjacent cells of the plant body, it is called as phloem. It is called as phloem. Next, the xylem is responsible for the transport of materials like water, salt from the root. The xylem tissue is present in roots. The xylem tissues and the xylem vessels are present in, where is it present?
Roots.
Roots. It is present in roots. The xylem is responsible for the, and the xylem is helpful for the transportation of some materials like water, salts, and minerals from the roots to absorb the roots from the soil. Next, and next one is the phloem tissue. The phloem tissue is helpful for the transportation of the food materials prepared by the process of photosynthesis. Prepared by the process of photosynthesis, and it transported to the other parts of the plant body. It transported to the other plants of the plant body. The phloem is helpful too. The phloem is responsible for the transportation of food material by the process of photosynthesis to other parts of the plant body to supply the food materials to all parts of the plant body. Next, hence they are known as conducting or vascular tissue. The phloem and xylem is joined together to form the vascular bundles. The xylem and phloem joined together to form a vascular bundle. The xylem and phloem together form the vascular bundles. And the vascular tissue gives a mechanical support to the plant body. It gives some support to the plant body. It gives some support to the plant body. Next. Chudandi, see the diagram. The xylem is responsible for the transportation of some materials like water and minerals, salts to the soil. Next, the phloem it is helpful for the transportation of food materials. It is helpful to the transportation of food materials to prepare the process of photosynthesis and transport it to the all parts of the plant body. All parts of the plant body. Next, the xylem and phloem is joined together to form the vascular bundle. See that, all of you see the diagram. The phloem tissue and the xylem tissue is joined together to form the vascular bundle. Vascular bundles. Next. The xylem tissues contain some cells, that is the elongated trachyated cells and tubular vessels and fibrosus and parenchyma. The xylem tissues contain some elongated trachyated cells and tubular vessels and parenchyma. And the phloem tissue contain some long sieve cells. Some long sieve cells and some sieve tubes and companion cells and fibrosus and parenchyma. We know that some of the sieve tube cells do not have nucleus. We studied the last class. And the cell is the basic, cell structure and functional unit of the living organisms. Last lesson, we are all know about the some sieve tube cells do not have phloem, so do not have nucleus, do not have nuclear membrane. We know that
இங்க இருக்கக்கூடாது ஓயே எத்தனை மேல
the phloem contains long tubes and companion cells and fibrous cells and parenchyma. Next, the vascular tissues carry water to great heights in the plant body. Some plants are, it is very big and it is very long. But how the water is transported to the all parts of the plant body? Anybody can say? The transported of water and food materials, the biggest plants of the plant body to transported the food material is phloem tissue, and the transported of water is xylem tissue. For example, it is up to nearly 200 feet in eucalyptus plants. The local name was xylem. And up to nearly 330 feet in the redwood trees. We all know that red sandal trees, it is very long and it is very big. But how the water is transported to the all parts of the body? The transported of water, the xylem tissue to absorb the water through the soil and transported the all parts of the plant body. And the food is prepared by the photosynthesis process. The food is transported to the all parts of the plant body. Next, this is the xylem tissue and phloem tissues. The xylem tissue is contain trachytid cells, vesicle elements, and nucleus. And some of the phloem tissues and the phloem sieve tubes that do not have nucleus. Next, last one is the meristematic tissue. The meristematic tissue is 3 types. Number 1 is apical meristematic tissue, intercalary meristematic tissue, and lateral meristematic tissue. The apical meristematic tissue is present in root and shoot tips. It is present in root tips and shoot tips. The apical meristematic tissue is responsible for the growth of root and shoot tip. It is root and shoot tip. Next, intercalary meristematic tissue, it is present in leaf base and node. It is present in leaf base and node. This is the shoot of apical tissue. Shoot of apical meristematic tissue, and this is the root of apical meristematic tissue. Root of meristematic tissue. This is the plant, this is the shoot, and this is the root tip. Next, and the intercalary meristematic tissue, it is present in the middle of the plant and base of the plant and node. We observe some plants. We have seen some nodes. That is the intercalary meristematic tissue. It is responsible for the growth of plant from the leaf and nodes. Next one is lateral meristematic tissue. The lateral meristematic tissue is present in side of the stem. The lateral, this is the side of the stem. The lateral meristematic tissue is present in the side of the stem and root. It is responsible for the increasing the diameter of the stem. It is responsible for the diameter of the stem. It is responsible for the diameter of the stem. Next, increase the diameter of the stem. Next, last, the plant tissues are of 4 types. Number 1 is meristematic tissues and dermal tissues and ground tissues and vascular tissues. The meristematic tissue is 3 types: apical meristematic tissues and lateral meristematic tissues and intercalary meristematic tissues. Next, the ground tissue is, the dermal tissue is also 3 types. It is consisting of 3 layers. Number 1 is epidermis, mesodermis and endodermis. The epidermis is the outermost layer and endodermis is the middle layer, and the mesodermis is the middle layer and endodermis is the innermost layer. Next, the ground tissue are of 3 types: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Now, the sclerenchyma is divided into 3 types. Number 1 is florenchyma, arenchyma and storage tissue. Next, the vascular tissue is 2 types. Number 1 is xylem and phloem. The xylem is responsible for transport of water and the phloem is responsible for transport of the food material. The xylem and phloem is joined together to form a vascular bundles.
Madam,
Sir, చెప్పండి.
madam, 10 minutes ఉంది madam remaining.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, now we are going to next new topic. Slide కనిపిస్తా ఉందా?
కనబడుతుంది మేడం.
Next, we are going to know new topic, that is the animal tissues. Plants are also 4 major groups of tissues and animals also have 4 major groups of tissues. Number 1 is the epithelial tissue and number 2 is connective tissue and number 3 is muscle tissue. Last one is the nervous tissue. The animal tissue is 4 major groups: epithelial, connective and muscle. Last one is the nervous. It is the nervous tissue. Next one. First, what is the tissues? The tissues is a group of cells. We are all know. The tissues is more complex than the cells. It is very complex to compare to the cells. And the epithelial tissue is present in skin, hair, fingernails. The epithelial tissue is present in skin, hair, fingernails. And the connective tissue is present in bone, blood, cartilage. It is present. The connective tissue is present in bone, blood, and cartilage. Next, the third one is the nervous tissue. The nervous tissue is present in brain, spinal cord, and nerves. It is present in brain, spinal cord, and nerve. Next, the muscle tissue. Where is it present? The muscle tissue is present in limbs and heart and stomach. The muscle tissue is present in limbs, heart, and stomach. Next, we know that different organ systems works to carry the all different functions and our daily life process. We know that some organ systems, respiratory system, to inhale the air. To the next one is the digestive system. Next, and reproductive system, and last one is the lymphatic system. There are different kinds of tissues in the animal to perform the different functions, like plant tissues. The plant tissues contain some the plants contain some tissues, different types of tissues. They perform different functions, and also there are different kinds of animal tissues and they perform different functions, like plant tissues. Animals and plants are both of the all living organisms, but some tissues cover and protect the plant body, and some tissues and cover the and protected the body of the animal. Next, some tissues helps in the movement. In some tissues helps in the movement, which is performed by the muscles and bones. Which is performed by the muscles and bones. And other types of tissues make connection between these two tissues. There is connection between muscle and bones. What is the help of a bone and muscle? It helps to the movement. It helps to the movement of animal body. Next, let us do an activity. First, identification of tissue in some collected sample. For example, we do an experiment. We have some required materials. That is microscope. Next slide. Next, dilute HCl and forceps and brush and cover slip. Next, what is the procedure? We can do an experiment. First, we have collected some small piece of a chicken with bone. Next, put in a dilute the chicken piece. We collect some chicken piece and it is put in the dilute HCl for 2 hours. Take the skin part of the chicken piece. Next one is the take this piece of the chicken. Take the skin part of the chicken piece. Next, we have collected this chicken piece and it is placed on the material with the forceps, with the help of forceps or blade. And then keep another slide. First, we take one slide and put the piece of the chicken piece. First, it put in the slide and we have take another slide and it is pressing the both slides slightly and pressing the both slides slightly and place a cover slip and place a cover slip on it and observe the microscope. What we have observed in the microscope, we have observed some epithelial tissue. We have observed the epithelial tissue. That is the procedure of epithelial tissue. And next one is the next experiment. First, we take a sterilized syringe needle and it collect the 1-2 drops to prick the finger and to collect the drop of blood with the syringe needle and take this slide and keep the finger on this slide to collect 1 drop of blood. To collect 1 drop of blood and